Hello there, wonderful human. From where in the world are you tuning in? A cozy village? A bustling city? A secret lair? Drop your location in the comments and don't forget to send this video flying to your friends and family. It keeps this channel running like a rocket. Let's dive in. In my middle years, it felt like hormones dictated nearly every choice I made. Whatever portion of my brain wasn't hijacked by them, that little leftover slice, it was completely consumed with cars and motorcycles. During my 20s, I was hopelessly drawn to nearly every woman who crossed my path. I tried my hand at college, but after 1 year, money became tight, and I had no choice but to leave. That's when Amy entered my life, and everything began to shift. I served 2 years in the Marines, and the moment I returned home, I married her. Less than 2 years into being husband and wife, our financial situation crumbled. And just when things seemed tough enough, Amy got pregnant, which hit me like a blow I wasn't ready for. 9 months later, our first child arrived. It felt like the door on my youth had been slammed shut, locked and sealed. Back then, when a baby was on the way, you didn't sit around discussing emotions. You simply accepted it and pressed forward. Our flashy two-seater was replaced with something more practical for a growing family. Gone were the spontaneous dates. We had to plan every outing like a small expedition. Our sex life, once vibrant and frequent, dwindled to a few tired encounters each week. I kept reassuring myself, it'll return to normal once the baby gets older. But that rebound never came. That was simply the new reality. Our 30s became a long exercise in staying financially above water. We welcomed a second son, and suddenly 2 bedrooms felt impossibly small. That meant a bigger home, which meant a bigger mortgage, and more time spent working to pay it. What used to be optional overtime turned into a necessity. We could no longer afford to indulge every want. Instead, we had to distinguish between wants and needs. We started budgeting carefully, planning every purchase, and setting money aside for emergencies, or to keep credit card bills from ballooning. We still shared happy moments as a family, no doubt. But the weight of responsibility never lifted. Even intimacy had to be penciled in. A couple times a year, the grandparents would take the kids for a weekend, and we'd try to reconnect. Amy would sigh and say, "I'm not 20 anymore. I can't go all night like we used to." When we reached our 40s, our focus turned to preparing the boys to leave home. Pay raises had finally given us some breathing room, even with both kids in college. Thank goodness for student loans. We were lucky they both chose local community colleges, which saved us the cost of dorms, but expenses still piled up. Still, when they graduated and moved out, it was like a long exhale. We were finally alone again. Amy, though, quickly filled that new space in her life. She joined a gym, took dance classes, got involved in politics. Despite all the years passing, our physical connection never fully reignited, but at least it hadn't completely disappeared either. I kept thinking, our 50s, that's when we'll find our rhythm again. The kids were independent, my job was stable, and we finally had the freedom to focus on ourselves. We took out a few loans, gearing up for what we hoped would be our second honeymoon. Then menopause arrived like a storm I never anticipated. It felt like life had pulled a cruel prank on us. I kept thinking, this isn't how things were supposed to play out. While Amy's body fought its own hormonal war, mine felt newly alive. She initially turned to diet changes and natural remedies, but nothing brought real relief. Eventually, she sought medical treatment, which brought partial control, but not a cure. The hot flashes lingered. The mood swings became less severe, but they didn't disappear. The crying spells became rarer, but emotional dips and sleepless nights stuck around. But the toughest part wasn't any of those symptoms. It was the fading of her desire. Not entirely, but enough that she was content with intimacy just once in a while. I felt robbed. I had powered through our 30s and 40s, clinging to the dream that we'd someday recapture what we once shared. By then, I had mastered my career. My work ran on autopilot. I was earning more than double what I had in my early years. The suffocating stress that once defined our lives had finally let up. Inside, I felt young again, revived. There was no fear of surprise pregnancies. We were finally truly free, or so I believed. One evening, as I hovered behind her in the kitchen, Amy snapped, "Sam, could you please calm down? You're making this harder than it needs to be." I leaned in and said, Then let's skip dinner and have a little fun instead. Remember when we used to sneak off and make love? She gave me a tired smirk. Slow your roll, Romeo. Keep pushing and you'll be lucky if anything ever happens again. Was I annoyed? Absolutely. But what could I really do? Interrupt her mid-thought? That question circled my mind over and over. In the end, I chose to stay quiet. I didn't initiate anything, didn't nudge the situation. I just stood back, waiting to see if she'd eventually take a step toward me on her own. Nearly 4 weeks passed, and then one day Amy mentioned how she appreciated that I wasn't always all over her every time she passed by. I couldn't believe it. She was thanking me for keeping my hands to myself. That's when it hit me. I couldn't keep drifting like this. I needed a plan. Amy and I had our usual rhythm: spin classes on Thursdays and Fridays, workouts at the gym every Monday and Tuesday. I had a good connection with a few women from spin and one guy who was a fixture at the gym. So I thought, maybe they could give me a little help in nudging things back into place with Amy. What are you asking us to do exactly? Bella said, exchanging a look with Chloe. I just need you to flirt with me, subtly, only when she's around. Nothing too over the top, but enough that she notices. You're trying to make Amy jealous? You think that's going to fly? Chloe raised one eyebrow skeptically. I just want her to see that other women find me attractive too, that maybe I've got more value than she's currently giving me credit for, I explained. So this is just about getting her into bed? Bella said dryly. She thinks you miss Chloe, she added with a laugh. Look, Sam, Bella said more seriously, Amy and I are tight. I don't want her pissed at me. We'll go along with this, but only a little. The moment it gets weird, we're out. Fair? I appreciate it, really. I'm not looking to cause drama. I just want to bring some spark back, I told them honestly. Because that part was true. Tina from the gym agreed to join in too. She thought the whole idea sounded amusing, like a harmless social experiment. She and I were both runners, so we'd already had plenty of conversations while pacing each other on treadmills. I wasn't sure of her exact age, but she was younger. That much was clear. Slender, strong, classic runner's frame, she looked fantastic. I knew she'd grab Amy's attention without trying. We figured meeting at the gym and heading out for a jog together would be perfect. Kept things under the radar. And it worked exactly as planned. Chloe and Bella started making small but noticeable moves before and after class. I'd adjust Chloe's spin bike setup, and Bella would borrow my water bottle, claiming she'd forgotten hers. Within a couple of weeks, I noticed Amy beginning to react. One evening, as I stood talking to Bella and Chloe after spin, she called out, Sam, let's go. I'm starving. Give me a minute, babe, I called back, then wrapped up my chat over the next 10 to 15 seconds. Catch you later, I told the women as I walked toward the car where Amy waited. What were you guys talking about? She asked once I was inside. Just comparing Chris and Jamie's classes. Nothing important, I said. Well, I'm hungry. Can we just go? She replied, her glare sharp. Then came the moment Tina asked me, right in front of Amy, if I was up for another run sometime. Amy's reaction was instant. You, running again? Your knees can't take it, she snapped. But I guess it's nice to have someone willing to run with you for a change. I'll see you at home, I told her, watching the irritation cross her face. The following Thursday, Chloe laughed at a joke and brushed my arm, and on Friday, Bella gave me a hug after I helped adjust her footrests. Amy took in all of it. As we headed to the car, I could practically feel the friction crackling between us. They're getting a little too friendly, she said, cutting me off. What are you talking about? I asked. Amy, it's just Bella and Chloe. They're being nice. It's not like anything's happening. I don't like them touching you, she said firmly. None of them are married, and I don't want them getting any ideas. Once we pulled into the driveway, I looked at her and said, Seriously, Amy, you're feeling threatened by Bella and Chloe? Maybe, she said softly, eyes still on me. Then came the night I got back from a run with Tina, 25 minutes later than I said I would. Amy was waiting, full of questions. Where had I gone? Why hadn't I checked in? I don't carry my phone when I'm running, I said. The weather was perfect, so we added a few extra miles. I told her we ran past the hospital, looped around her apartment, and grabbed some water before heading home. Did you go over to her place? she asked, eyes narrowing with suspicion. Yeah, but only for a minute. I was just thirsty, I said, trying to keep my tone light and believable. Her place was actually kind of impressive. A little tight on space overall, but the bedroom, massive. That's all it took for things to spiral. What the hell were you doing in her bedroom? Amy shot back, her voice edged with disbelief and rising tension. She was giving me a quick tour while I finished my drink, I said casually. Anyway, what are we doing for dinner? I added, trying to pivot. I'm dead serious. Don't go walking into other women's bedrooms. Do you understand me? She snapped. Okay, no more bedrooms. Message received, I replied with a strained smile. So, dinner? I asked again, hoping she'd drop it. Lately, we hadn't really been spending much time together, so when Amy suggested a night out, I brushed it off, something I'd never done before in our marriage. You don't feel like hanging out with me? She asked, visibly thrown. My leg cramped during my run today. It's acting up again, I told her. Give it a day or two, it should ease up. That was new for me, a first. How's that sitting with you, Amy? Fine, wonderful, she said stiffly. Just tell me when you're back in the mood. Her tone laced with irritation. 4 days passed before she brought it up again. Why aren't we having sex anymore? She asked one night after we'd eaten. What are you talking about? We still do, I said. It's been 26 days, Sam. I've been keeping track. Seriously? Doesn't feel like it's been that long. See for yourself. She tossed a calendar at me. Last time was April 16th. Sure enough, there was a big red circle around the date. I'm not saying you're wrong, it just didn't feel like it's been almost a month, I said. You don't touch me. You barely even kiss me anymore, she accused. Wait a second. Weren't you the one saying I was too clingy? That I acted like some lovesick teenager? Or maybe someone else appreciated me toning it down for once, I added, letting some sarcasm slip. Make up your mind, Amy. Do you want affection or not? She didn't let that slide. If you're not getting it from me, who is keeping you satisfied, Sam? That slut Bella? Or are you back for another look at Tina's bed? I'm not seeing anyone else, I said with a half smile, hoping to diffuse her. And let's be real, you haven't exactly been throwing yourself at me either. That grin didn't help my case. If I catch even a hint of you cheating, I swear I'll cut it off myself, she yelled. It was a joke, a bad one, yeah, but just a joke, I said quickly, trying to calm her down before she walked out. Later that night, I tried to initiate something, but she shut it down cold. Why don't you go call Bella or Tina? Maybe they're less busy, she muttered. Amy stayed angry the whole weekend. I apologized more than once, but she wasn't budging. Great, that backfired big time. At least before I was getting something, now, nothing. Tuesday rolled around, and I met up with Tina for our usual evening run. At the very least, she was easy to talk to. Being around her didn't feel like navigating a minefield. Push me hard tonight, Tina said. I've got a 10K this weekend, and I need to know where I stand. We'd been running at her tempo for a while, but tonight, she wanted to see what mine looked like. I started easy, letting the first half-mile warm us up, then kicked it up a notch. Tired already, Sam? Or is that all you've got? She teased with a grin. Oh, really? I said, grinning back. Hang on to your thong. Let's see if you can keep up. Just like that, we flew through the next 3 miles like we were sprinting toward a finish line. Roughly 400 meters from the finish, I started yelling for her to pick up the pace. Come on, girl, let's move. Don't fall behind now, I shouted, my voice rising with urgency. As soon as her apartment building appeared in the distance, I kicked into a sprint. Push it, Tina, everything you've got, I bellowed. We were both gasping like we'd run ourselves into the ground. By the time we stumbled into her parking lot, she looked like she might puke. That was solid, I told her as we paced around, trying to catch our breath. If you bring that kind of fire on Sunday, no one's catching you, I added. To ease some of the tension that had been hanging between Amy and me lately, I said I'd take her out for brunch at Tony's. She'd been on edge for weeks. I figured a peace offering, maybe even a shot at makeup sex, might lighten things up, I joked. Come up for a second, Tina said between deep breaths. I'll grab you a Gatorade before you go. We walked toward her building, our fingers interlocked. After a couple quick drinks with her, I ran the 2 miles home. Amy wasn't there when I arrived, so I headed straight to the bathroom. The hot shower was like salvation. I scrubbed off, shaved, and brushed my teeth. Just as I stepped out, towel around my waist, she showed up in the doorway. "Covering your tracks?" she asked, arms folded tightly. "Huh?" I said, blindsided. "You know exactly what I mean," she said icily, spinning on her heel and marching down the hall. "What the hell are you even talking about?" I called after her while drying off. I found her storming back and forth in our bedroom, furious. "You slept with that girl," she shouted. "She's young enough to be your kid." "Amy, seriously? Are you hearing yourself right now? What is this even about?" "Don't insult my intelligence," she snapped. "I followed you both today. I watched you run, then saw you walk hand in hand toward her building. I waited out front. 10 minutes went by before I left. You really think I couldn't put the pieces together?" "You're imagining things. Honestly, I went inside for a couple of Gatorades. That's it. No touching, no kissing. Nothing inappropriate happened. If you want proof, let's go upstairs right now. I'll show you." "Don't even think about laying a finger on me again," she hissed. Looking back, I should have stayed silent. But no, my pride kicked in. "What else is new?" I muttered. That set it off like a bomb. For the next 20 minutes, we went to war, screaming, hurling ugly truths and nastier lies like shrapnel. "You think a dried-up woman like you gets it?" I snapped, and the second I said it, I knew I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. All I could hear in my head was, "Great job, Sam. Really brilliant." She slammed the door in my face, and I sank to the floor outside, leaning against the wood, listening to her sob, deep, broken sounds that dragged on for nearly 2 hours. Eventually, the apartment went still. I knocked gently a few times, no answer. So I went downstairs, cooked something small, and crashed on the couch, trying to figure out how I'd let everything fall apart, and what, if anything, I could do to fix it. I woke around 6:30 the next morning and headed back upstairs. The bedroom was empty. The bedmaid. She was gone. Sometime during the night, Amy had packed her things and walked out. I took another shower, got dressed, and went to work. I fired off a dozen emails begging her to reconsider, then left voicemails packed with apologies. Silence. That evening, I checked everywhere I could think of, any place she might have gone, but the house remained empty. Meanwhile, over at the gym, Amy walked through the fitness center, eyes scanning until they landed on Tina. Tina was just stepping off a machine and wiping it down when Amy stormed up from behind and landed a punch from the side. The hit dropped Tina to one knee. "Stay the hell away from my husband!" Amy screamed. "Go find your own man and quit chasing mine, you tramp." Amy had no idea who she was messing with. Before Tina could even fully process the blow, she stood up, steady and ice calm, and charged. She tackled Amy to the floor in one motion. "Do that again," Tina growled, pinning her down, "and I'll drag your face across every inch of this gym." "I didn't touch your damn husband. But now, if he ever asks, maybe I'll say yes." "That's not my fault if your man's not happy," Tina tossed over her shoulder, her voice calm as she strode away. Amy stood frozen for nearly half a minute before a trainer finally approached and helped her off the floor. "You okay?" he asked softly. "No," she said in a flat, lifeless voice. "I don't think I ever will be again." She exited the gym in a daze, her gaze briefly locking with the sea of stunned onlookers before she slipped out the door. "I can never walk back into that place," she whispered as she sank into the driver's seat. By the time she arrived at her son Kevin's house, the area beneath her left eye had swollen and throbbed with pain. Lara, Kevin's wife, answered the door and gasped. "What happened to your face?" "Lara, not now," Amy said, brushing past her. "Just get me some ice." She pressed a bag of frozen peas to her cheek for 20 minutes. The swelling eased slightly, but the bruising was already setting in. "Amy, who did this to you?" Lara asked again, this time with less urgency, more concern. "I did," Amy murmured. That was all she offered. Kevin got home soon after and was furious about her silence. "You're really not going to tell me who hit you?" he asked, pacing. "It wasn't Dad, was it?" "No," Amy said, her voice clear. "Your father never raised a hand to me, not once. He was the kindest man I ever knew. And I drove him away. I hope whoever he finds next gives him more happiness than I ever could." Eventually, Kevin called me, clearly worried. "Dad, something's not right. I think she needs to go to the hospital," he said. I never imagined Amy would show up at Kevin's, especially considering how she and Lara never saw eye to eye. Amy always thought Lara pushed Kevin too hard, too focused on appearances and possessions. No one could have predicted any of this. "Amy, what happened?" I asked as I stepped into the living room. "Sam, just take me home," she said quietly, rising to her feet and reaching for my hand. We rode in silence for a while before she finally spoke. "I confronted Tina at the gym," she said. "I warned her to back off. I slapped her first. She hit me back and told me she hadn't slept with you. As you can tell, I lost that fight." When we pulled into the garage and stepped inside, I should have embraced her. I should have told her I loved her and that none of this mattered. Only her. But instead, I did the worst thing I could have done. I told her the truth. I admitted that the whole situation, Tina, Bella, and Chloe, had been a setup, just a ploy to make her jealous. At first, she just stared at me, silent. But it didn't last. "So let me get this straight," she said, her voice rising with every word. "You engineered this mess? You dragged those women into our lives just to make me jealous, for some kind of twisted excitement? You let me humiliate myself in front of an entire gym. Was it all just entertainment for you? Am I a joke to you? Some toy to mess with? Did you forget I'm your wife, your partner, the mother of your children?" Each word was like a strike to the heart, laced with disbelief and pain. "You sick bastard!" she screamed. "Get out! Get out of my house!" "Amy, I did it for us," I tried to explain, stepping toward her. But she was finished listening. She came at me, fists flying, shouting for me to leave. She grabbed whatever was within reach, kitchen items, anything, and hurled them at me one after another. I had never seen her this furious. She kept yelling, ordering me out of her home. So I left. Not because I wanted to, but because staying would have made things worse. I thought maybe she just needed time. I was wrong. When I returned that night, she was gone. I later learned she'd gone back to Kevin's. On Thursday, while I was at work, Lara came by and collected more of Amy's things. The rest of that week, I did everything I could to reach her. Apologies, calls, emails, desperate attempts to explain. I heard she'd sought out both Bella and Chloe and unleashed her anger on them as well. Everything I'd planned had turned into a disaster. I kept trying. I called, sent messages, even drove to Kevin's house hoping she'd talk to me. Nothing worked. "Dad, she doesn't want to see you," Kevin said firmly when I showed up again. "Just give me 60 seconds, please," I begged. "I'm sorry," he said, shaking his head. "But this time, I think you really messed up." Friday blindsided me like a punch I never expected. "Mr. Miles?" a man asked as I opened the front door, still sweating from my morning run. "That's me. What's going on?" He handed me a sealed envelope. "You've been served," he said, emotionless. I didn't even open the packet. I was already in my car, heading straight to my son's place. He was waiting for me outside. "You son of a bitch!" I shouted as I stepped out of the car, fury boiling over. "You kept this from me. Where is your mother?" "She and Lara left a while ago. They knew you'd come," he said, as calm as if we were discussing the weather. "Then I'll wait here until she shows up," I snapped. "I can't let you do that, Dad." "And why the hell not?" "Because Mom told me not to let you inside." "Well, you might as well call the police then, because I'm not leaving." He did. The cops arrived, ordered me off the property, and the next day, a restraining order landed in my mailbox. Boiling with rage, I changed all the locks on our house. If they wanted a battle, they'd get one. Jack, my younger son, tried to intervene, wanted to keep things from exploding, but everyone told him to stay out of it. Things came to a head when Amy came back to collect her stuff. Lara and Kevin showed up with her, knocking at my door. I wouldn't open it. "Leave now or I'm calling the police," I yelled through the door. "Dad, just let us grab Mom's things," Kevin pleaded from the porch. "Not a chance. If she doesn't have legal proof or a court order, she's not taking anything." I even joked, loud enough for them to hear, that I might just burn all her so-called valuables in the backyard. Kevin lost it. He tried forcing the door open, but the cops showed up again and dragged him and Lara off the lawn. I felt vindicated. I threw the divorce paperwork straight into the trash. No signature, no lawyer. I ignored every email, call, and knock that didn't come from someone I trusted. Same at work. Nobody heard a word from me. Amy wanted to leave? Let her do the heavy lifting. I told myself she'd come to her senses eventually. That was a lie. 6 months in, when I thought maybe I was turning a corner, she started seeing someone and made damn sure I knew. She flaunted her new relationship like a trophy. Tyler says I'm the best woman he's ever had, she wrote in a letter she sent to the house. Thought you should know. Not everyone thinks I'm some washed-up has-been. Attached was a picture, her and him tangled up in bed. That photo gutted me, for a week, then for months after. I cut ties completely. Amy, Kevin, Laura, even Jack for a time. I had ruined everything. Lost more than I could ever replace. The depression swallowed me whole. I started on medication. I found a therapist. Weekly sessions where I spilled every ounce of guilt, anger, and shame. And slowly, very slowly, she helped me see that not all of it had been my fault. Since the beginning, I'd been keeping a journal, scribbling down every raw thought about Amy, the kids, the wreckage. I mourned what I'd let my life become, and the fact that Amy and I had long since stopped truly speaking to each other. For the first time in over 10 years, I started traveling again for work. It wasn't healing, but it was movement. Something to fill the space. Every now and then, I'd run into old acquaintances who'd give me that look of pity, offer a shoulder, and then mention they'd seen Amy glowing with someone new. I canceled my gym membership, stopped going to spin classes. I was tired of being reminded. Running was the only habit I kept, morning and night, like I could leave the past behind if I ran hard enough. One quiet Sunday during a long jog, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "I figured you either skip town or drop dead," Tina said, pulling up beside me. "Just been laying low," I said, slowing so she could keep up. She stopped short. "Sometimes I still wonder if I caused all of it." "You didn't," I told her honestly. "I lit the match. I'm the one who watched it burn." She studied me. "You look like crap. Why don't you come by sometime? I'll cook you something real." "You still living in the same place?" "You know where to find me," she said with a faint smile. "When I swing back through town, maybe I'll take you up on that offer," I told Tina. "At the very least, I'll give you a call, all right?" "I'll keep my distance this time, I swear," she said, squeezing me tight and kissing my cheek. "Just don't forget. You have to call me when you're back." I had 4 days off before heading into a 2-week trip across the Northeast, checking in with some of our client accounts. It was a PR tour my boss had put together. "You need to step away for a bit," he'd said. "You're running on fumes. Clear your head, shake the attitude. Go visit the Northeast branches, come back sharp." I reminded him I was adding a few vacation days onto the end of it. "So you'll be gone 3 weeks. Big deal," he said with a shrug. "The company won't fall apart. Just be sure Katie has things under control and the team leads know what they're doing. Go have some fun, get lucky if you can, and we'll catch up when you're back." That Tuesday morning, I actually felt halfway decent when I got up. I pulled on a pair of shorts, laced my sneakers, and headed out for a long run. The weather couldn't have been better, and the miles gave me room to think and reset for what lay ahead. I'd made up my mind. The house was too much for just me. I was going to put it on the market. Renting something smaller, an apartment maybe, would be fine until I figured out my next steps. I took out some money and bought a simple 1-bedroom condo in Sarasota, Florida. Amy and I had once talked about retiring there. Now it looked like I'd be doing that alone. As I passed a massive Catholic church and stopped at a crosswalk near an elementary school, I noticed myself getting antsy. There wasn't a car in sight except for one in the distance, and I nearly stepped into the road early. But something, maybe instinct, made me pause. The light turned, and I stepped off the curb alongside a small group of children and their teacher crossing from the other side. Then, out of nowhere, I noticed a car speeding toward us, clearly not slowing down. I shouted, urging the kids to get back, but they froze in confusion, staring at the man yelling like a lunatic. Without thinking, I dashed forward, arms stretched wide, and shoved the whole group, kids and teacher, out of the way. They hit the pavement from the force of it. That's the last moment I remember. When I came to, only one eye opened. My vision swam and my thoughts were mud. Two shadowy figures leaned over me, speaking. "Can you tell us your name? Who is Amy?" one of them asked. I tried lifting my head, but the words wouldn't come. Everything went black again. The next time I regained consciousness, a cool cloth was pressed to my forehead. It took a while to register what was happening. Both my arms were swathed in tubes and bandages. A woman with dark hair and a kind, olive-toned face touched my lips with a wet sponge and trickled some water into my mouth. I must have looked pathetic, like a hatchling waiting to be fed. "Don't try to talk," she said softly. "You were in an accident. You're in the hospital. Just lie still. Don't move. Try to stay calm." "Do you know your name?" she asked gently. I heard her clearly. I understood every word, but my body stayed silent. No sound came out. I felt a rush of helplessness, and then the blackness returned. Turned out, I had managed to save them, everyone but myself. The driver, realizing too late what was unfolding, tried to veer away but struck me full on instead. His bumper caught both my legs mid-air as I twisted, trying to protect the others, and flung me into a brutal spin. I slammed into the side of the car like a rag doll. The injuries were catastrophic. Both legs broken, multiple ribs snapped, one lung punctured, my nose crushed, a concussion, and more bruises and lacerations than I could count. I looked like I'd gone a few rounds with a freight train. According to the teacher, I called out Amy's name right before losing consciousness. That was moments before I slipped into a coma that lasted 15 days. A nurse later told me I woke briefly, then sank back into unconsciousness for another 5. I wasn't carrying ID, and my face was so disfigured it was impossible to tell who I was. The local news ran a story about a mystery Good Samaritan who had thrown himself in front of a car to save a group of first graders and their teacher. They described my height, build, and clothes, but never aired a photo. My face was too damaged. No one came forward to identify me. Elsewhere, Tina was sitting down for dinner, half watching the TV. The news was on again, rerunning the same segment. The anchor repeated their appeal. Did anyone recognize the man who'd saved the children near the big Catholic church on 10th Street? Tina froze mid-bite. She set her fork down slowly. "That's our usual route," she murmured. After skipping through most of the televised segment, she finally decided to call the newsroom. "Runner?" she asked into the phone. "Could you give me his description again?" "He's around 170 centimeters tall, maybe a bit more, has brown hair, and weighs somewhere near 175 pounds, came the reply. "Do you think you know who it is?" they asked her in return. "I need to make a phone call first," she said, her voice tight. "I'll get back to you." "Come on, pick up," she begged into the receiver, pacing. "Forget this," she muttered, grabbing her keys and rushing out of her apartment. She jumped into her car and drove off, tires screeching. "Please don't let it be him," she kept whispering as she pulled up outside Sam's house. His car was still parked in its usual spot near the garage. She knocked repeatedly on the front door for 5 solid minutes before walking around the house, trying to see through the windows. "Can I help you with something?" a man called out as she turned back toward the street. "I'm looking for Sam. Have you seen him lately? I'm a friend, and I've been trying to reach him, but there's been no response." "Far as I know, he said he'd be out of town for a while. Weeks ago, I think. Haven't seen him since," the man replied. "I've had to cut his grass the last couple of times. His dog's gone too. Real shame about him and Miss splitting up. He didn't take it well from what I saw." "Do you happen to have a spare key?" she asked urgently. "I do, but it's for real emergencies only." "Well, this qualifies," Tina said firmly. Inside, the house felt frozen in time, like someone had stepped out for a moment and never returned. The coffee maker had been filled with water, but never turned on. A couple of bagels and a tub of butter sat untouched on the table. The bathroom light was still glowing. "Which hospital did he end up in?" she asked, already jotting down notes as she prepared to leave. Just make sure you lock up, the neighbor said as she walked out. I've got this horrible feeling I know exactly where Sam ended up, she murmured as she backed out of the driveway. Though his face was bruised and his nose still swollen, Tina recognized him the second she saw him. He's whispered a woman's name, Amy, more than once, the nurse explained softly. He's technically out of the coma, but not fully awake yet. Tina gently moved a lock of hair from his forehead. While he was unconscious, someone from the church came by every day to read to him. They're also paying for his care, the nurse added with a kind smile. He's kind of become a local inspiration. His name's Stephen Miles, Tina said, handing her a small slip of paper. He lives at 1725 Southeast 12th Street. She gave the nurse his employer's name, mentioned Amy was his ex-wife, and left her own contact information, asking to be notified about any changes in his condition. I just don't get how no one realized Sam was missing, she said aloud, frustrated. Didn't his work check in when he didn't show? What about his kids? Then it struck her. After the divorce, Sam had been completely shut out. His sons had sided with Amy and hadn't spoken to him since. She intended to call them as soon as she got back home, but the evening news beat her to it. This just in, the anchor's voice boomed from the TV. The man being hailed as the hero of St. Mary's Church has been identified as Stephen Miles from Orlando, Florida. He's currently recovering from his injuries at Mercy Hospital. The only word he's said since the incident is Amy, so wherever you are, Amy, he's asking for you. The story exploded nationally. Major news outlets quickly picked it up. It was the kind of heartening story people were craving. Before long, relatives and old friends began arriving at the hospital, but were met by an enraged Tina. He's been lying unconscious for a month and none of you noticed? She shouted. What kind of family is that? They fumbled to justify themselves, but Tina wasn't buying it. All he wanted was to rebuild his life, to be with the woman he loved and reconnect with his kids, she said, her voice rising in anger. But instead of helping him, you turned your backs. It's disgusting. Go back to your comfortable little lives. He deserves better. He's shown who he is, and so have you. With that, she turned away from them and walked straight back into Sam's room. The rest of the day blurred into hospital paperwork and endless consultations. Tina didn't leave his side, holding his hand, giving him whatever peace she could. That's when Amy entered. Tina stood abruptly. Leave, she said coldly. You abandoned him. You don't get to walk in now and pretend you still care. Why don't you run back to your boyfriend and your picture-perfect life? Tina barked, rising sharply from her chair. If you're still standing here in 10 seconds, I swear I'll knock you flat. With tears slipping down her cheeks, Amy turned silently and walked out. She located the doctor, handed over her cell and work contact information, and told him to reach out immediately if there was any change in Sam's condition. Then she drove to his house. As she parked by the curb, an elderly neighbor approached. Well, now this is something, he remarked. Sam didn't hesitate for a second, rushed right in to save those kids, put everything on the line. When he pulls through, the entire block's throwing a party for him. He continued, his teacher drops by nearly every day, calls him her knight in shining armor. Honestly, I don't blame her. I asked whether he had a spare key and if he'd be willing to let me inside. It should be all right, he said with a nod. We were all surprised when you two split. Sam didn't take it well, though I'm guessing you already knew that. He opened the door and left without another word. I stood in the entryway, unsure what had drawn me back. It had been so long since I was last there. Sam had changed the locks, and Kevin had taken whatever belongings I'd left behind. Everything looked untouched, like time had frozen. The hangers still lay in the living room, exactly where Sam had thrown them after emptying my closet. I went upstairs to what used to be our shared bedroom. Aside from my things being gone, the space was just as I remembered it, though there were a few dents in the drywall, likely left behind by Sam's anger. I opened the nightstand drawer and found that some of my smaller personal effects were still there, buried under pages torn from his notebooks and his scattered belongings. I sat down on the bed, picked up his pillow, and pressed it to my face. It still carried his scent. I hugged it tightly to my chest. Then I leaned the pillow against the headboard and lay down on what used to be his side, my eyes tracing the patterns in the ceiling. Something made me reach for the notebook on top. I'm not sure why, but I did. It turned out to be his most recent journal. I had no idea, Amy murmured, eyes scanning the first page. Every emotion Sam had suppressed poured out in ink, honest, raw, and completely unfiltered. Those notebooks held his soul. It took me almost 3 full days of non-stop reading to make it through them all. More than once I considered stopping. Maybe I didn't have the right. Maybe I shouldn't be seeing this. But I couldn't walk away. He had written about everything, our relationship, the joyful moments, the heartbreaks, the slow unraveling of us. I never realized the depth of his love or the extent of the pain I had caused in just over a year. I hadn't known he was battling depression. I hadn't known he had thought about quitting his job. I cried until I was hollow, drained of anything left to give. But what stung the most was reading the passages on forgiveness, how he had chosen to release the pain I caused, even if he couldn't forget it. By the week's end, I returned to gather the journals. I headed downstairs into his study, powered on his computer, and logged into his AOL account. He hadn't even changed the password. I skimmed through the inbox, deleting junk mail and making a mental list of people I'd need to inform, starting with his boss. Then I came across an old email I had sent him months before, and I crumbled. He had saved it. I opened the photo attachment and felt like I'd been kicked in the chest. I had sent that photo out of spite just to hurt him, and clearly I had. My finger hovered over the delete key, but I didn't press it. This wasn't my computer, and truthfully, I had no right to be here anymore. Gradually, the healing began. The bandages were removed from my left eye, though my nose needed surgical realignment. My ribs were healing, and my legs, though still in a cast, were beginning to mend, despite the relentless itching. Fortunately, the concussion had been mild, with no swelling in the brain. The doctor explained that the coma had actually helped, giving my body time to recover undisturbed. Debbie, my nurse, still came by during the day, though I no longer needed 24/7 care. She took care of the essentials. Things only got awkward during sponge baths. When she washed below the waist, I couldn't stop my body from reacting, and apparently that was a good sign. I tried apologizing once. She just chuckled. If you weren't reacting, she teased with a wink, that's when I'd be concerned. Fair enough. She probably had a point. Tina would visit nearly every evening after work, and so would Connie, the teacher Sam had saved. She brought cards from the children, filled with heartfelt thanks. She promised that when I felt strong enough, they'd come visit me themselves. She was a single mother, likely around 41, raising a 12-year-old daughter on her own. I told her she didn't need to come every day, but she brushed it off. You gave me and my daughter another shot at life, she said simply. Making sure you had the basics, comfort, care, consistency, felt like the very least I could offer. Each day at 4 o'clock, Connie would show up and read to me for about an hour. Her voice, her energy, even just her being there, had a calming effect on me. Something about her presence smoothed out the sharp edges of the day. Her bright smile made me count the minutes until her next visit. Tina usually came by around 6:30, often balancing her dinner in one hand. I was stuck with the hospital's tasteless food, but every now and then, she'd smuggle in a Big Mac. Somehow I ended up gaining 8 pounds, most of it padding my midsection. We'd talk about anything and everything, no pressure, no expectations, and by 8, she'd be on her way. My kids and ex-wife never came. Tina once said Amy still called now and then to check on me, but that was the extent of it. What do you mean I'll need a cane? I snapped at the doctor. Isn't another surgery an option? I pushed. His tone stayed calm. Your right leg's healing well, fractured in 2 spots, but it's coming along. The left one, though, is a different case. Right now, pins are keeping it stable, but we'll need to go back in to remove several fragments. I just want you to be prepared for the worst-case scenario, he added gently. I couldn't contain the frustration. I'm not buying that. I'm a runner. That's what I do. That's what I am. You're telling me I might lose the one thing I have left? Number, I can't accept that. Oddly enough, while everything else seemed to be falling apart, work was going surprisingly well. The team had rallied. I made sure they knew how much that meant. Kathy kept me informed, and between us, deadlines were still met. But while my paycheck kept landing in my savings account, my bills sat unpaid. It didn't occur to me at the time, who else was going to handle it all if not me? So when the foreclosure notice landed, followed by a letter from the insurance company saying I'd been dropped, I completely unraveled. I picked up the phone and called both. To be the company that abandoned me after I came out of a coma from saving 10 kids, I told the insurance representative. That's what you want in the papers? I gave the same speech to the mortgage company. To my shock, they waived all the penalties. Still, I knew something had to give. The house was the first thing to go. The very next morning, I called a realtor and put it on the market. Amy was still legally owed half, but I couldn't keep bleeding financially. It was time to cut ties and move forward. 10 weeks later, I was released from the hospital, complete with an assigned nurse. That nurse, Debbie, with nobody else at home, she moved into the guest room and only surfaced late at night, when I couldn't sleep or the pain kicked up. Tina and Connie kept visiting in the evenings, even after I told them they didn't have to. Kevin gave me a ring and Jack dropped by the day after I got home. Both apologized for not coming sooner. I brushed it off, I meant it too, but I did mention the house was going up for sale. You can't sell the house, Dad, they said. Where would you even go? I'll get a place close to work. In a few years, I'll move down south anyway. Kevin hesitated. Have you talked to Mom about it? I didn't miss a beat. Haven't spoken to her since last year. No need to now. We both know exactly what she thinks of me. That Friday night, something unexpected happened. Tina, Connie, and Connie's daughter, Rachel, organized a pajama party, right in my living room. There was pizza, pecan pie, and a few cold beers. Strictly speaking, the booze wasn't allowed with my pain meds, but I had 2 mugs anyway. It wasn't until 10:30 that the real motive behind the sleepover surfaced. While Tina took Rachel out to restock the fridge, Connie barged into my room like a storm. I know this is unexpected, and I know you're not at your best, she said, voice trembling. But I need to do this. For me. For you. You don't have to, I said softly. I know, she whispered, but I want to. Things got heated. We didn't go all the way. Rachel and Tina returned before it could, but the tension hung in the air for hours. When the cast finally came off, I didn't know whether to feel liberated or terrified. Then came rehab, 3 days a week. A cab would haul me to the clinic, and from there, it was torture. My physical therapist was built like a linebacker and had zero concept of leniency. Oh, you're a runner? She said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Then stop whining. You planning on running again or just giving up and making peace with your crutches? She didn't hold back. I cried during those sessions more than I care to admit. But I kept pushing. Through the tears, the setbacks, the doubt, I kept going. I kept telling myself the same thing. I'm going to have to deal with that damn doctor. When Kevin called, all he said was, Mom wants to see you. For what? I asked. No clue, he shot back. Do you even care if we speak again? I asked him, not bothering to hide my frustration. Cut the drama already, he said. You're not exactly high on my list these days. Keep acting like this and you're getting cut for good. So again, what's the reason she wants to talk to me now? It's because of you, he said. She's been quietly working behind the scenes with your doctors and therapists. She's afraid to reach out, considering how ugly things got after the divorce. So what am I supposed to say to her? I asked. Just tell her to stop by Saturday, anytime after 10, he said. Fine. I'll talk to her, I agreed. Might even be civil. Who knows? Friday evening, Connie was out running errands, and Tina dropped in before heading out. Amy wants to talk, I told her. I know, she said. We've actually been in touch for a couple months now. You didn't think to tell me? After your accident, once I started spending time around your family, she came by. She apologized for what happened at the gym. Since then, we've kept in contact. She checks in constantly, asks for updates on how you're doing. Before or after she's done cuddling with her new guy, I asked bitterly. That's between you two, she said calmly. I told her to reach out herself. That's why she's coming tomorrow. I know your feelings about her are tangled, she added. Tomorrow's your shot to sort through them. You'll have to face the tough questions on your own. I can't do that for you. She kissed my cheek on her way out and said, Go easy on the alcohol, okay? I'll be back tomorrow to hear how it went. I kept thinking about what she said. I didn't go overboard with the drinks that night. Just enough to take the edge off the ache she left behind. Just enough to stop the anger from bubbling up again. Just enough to keep myself from throwing my journals into the fire and watching them burn. And just enough to knock me out by 10:15 and finally sleep straight through the night. At 7:30 the next morning, the pain in my leg jolted me awake. 2 pills later, I was in the kitchen brewing coffee and cramming food down. By 9, I was downstairs on the rehab equipment I'd rented, forcing my leg to remember how to move, and failing badly. The doorbell rang. It took me nearly 5 minutes to free myself from the machine and limp upstairs. Come in, I called, making my way to the kitchen for a bottle of water. You want something? I asked. I'm good for now, she said. I grabbed a cold one from the fridge and collapsed into a kitchen chair, wiping the sweat off with a towel. That's enough rehab for today, I muttered, guzzling half the bottle. Well, Amy, I said, go ahead, say whatever you came to say. I want to talk about us, Sam, she began. There is no us, Amy. You walked away from that over a year ago. Or did that slip your mind? I remember, she said softly, and I've regretted it every day since. Didn't look like regret when you were living it up with Tyler, especially not after you started sending me those sweet little letters full of details. Hope he was worth the damage? I probably deserve some of that, she said. I was so furious about the mind games I lost my grip. I'm sorry, I mean it. I don't need your apology, I said coldly. That's for people who still give a damn. I don't. She blinked, wounded. If that's all you've got, thanks. But I've got things to do, and everything takes twice as long now. You won't even consider giving this another chance? She asked. Is there really nothing left for me? I cared. For a long time. Even after that first letter. But you kept it coming. Letter after letter. And whatever was left, you crushed. But I read your journals, she said. Everything you wrote about us. The dreams, the life you wanted. Hold on, I interrupted. You read my journals? How did you even get them? While you were in the hospital, I went to the house and found them, she confessed. I didn't recognize what I was looking at until I started digging through them. It caught me completely off guard when she said, I never realized how much you actually loved me. That was all she could manage before her voice gave out. Get out! Just get the hell out! I snapped at her. This place isn't even yours anymore, remember? You walked away, she replied. The words flew out of me like shrapnel. Why don't you go back to your new guy or whoever it is now and do me a favor? Stay gone. I shoved back from the kitchen table as I yelled, but my leg gave out underneath me, and I collapsed onto the tile. Let me help you, Amy said quietly, reaching toward me as I lay sprawled out on the cold floor. I don't want anything from you, I spat, my voice like sandpaper. Haven't you done enough already? The resentment in my voice was unmistakable. I tried again to get up, but my leg failed me a second time, and the pain that followed was searing. Just leave, please, I said, my voice strained. Just go, Amy. Get the hell out and leave me alone, I murmured, lying there on my back, helpless and humiliated. She began crying and rushed out without another word. The front door slammed behind her, leaving the house and me silent again. I lay motionless for what felt like ages before I even tried to move. Using my elbows and my one working leg, I dragged myself toward the couch. It took every ounce of energy I had to haul myself onto it. Soaked in sweat, my limbs shaking, I either passed out or slipped into some kind of pain-induced haze. When I opened my eyes again, I knew exactly where I was. You're zoning out again, aren't you? The surgeon said, as they wheeled me down the hallway toward the OR. Somehow you managed to bust the pin and make the injury worse than before. Luckily for you, I was here when they brought you in. Now breathe in. You know the routine. I'll check on you later tonight. I came to in post-op, immediately recognizing one of the nurses from before. Couldn't resist a return visit, huh? She teased. I missed the gourmet food and world-class sponge baths, I joked, trying to inject some levity. Get some sleep. I'll see you in your room once they move you, she said with a warm smile. Not long after, Tina burst through the door like a storm front. The minute she entered, she was all fire. I turn my back for 5 minutes and you end up back here? You really think I've got nothing better to do than haul your ass out of trouble every time? Can't say I do, I replied, flashing a weak grin. She let out an involuntary laugh, and I couldn't help but laugh too, even though it hurt like hell. I found you on the couch with a piece of metal sticking out of your leg, she said, shaking her head. You were bleeding like you'd come off a slaughterhouse line. Good thing I showed up early and caught wind of your little run-in with Amy. If I hadn't, you might have lost that leg for good. She gave my arm a light slap. Then who'd be hobbling around beside me, huh? So what the hell actually happened between you and Amy that landed you back here? She asked. Nothing explosive, I replied. She came to apologize, said she wanted to talk things out. And? And nothing, I said flatly. What did you say to her? Tina pushed. What do you think I said? I told her to leave. You seriously said that? She asked, narrowing her gaze. You've been wrapped up in her for over a year. Don't tell me you let it blow up again. You didn't manage to screw this up twice, did you? Her look was more disappointment than shock. Maybe I was a bit too rough, I admitted. Especially after she told me she'd read through my journals. Can you believe that? Sam, Tina said slowly, I read them too. While I was staying at your place, I found them. Read the whole stack over the weekend. They were really good. Oh, perfect. Maybe we should run them as a serial in the Sunday paper so everyone can enjoy my heartbreak, I snapped. If you didn't want them read, you probably shouldn't have left them sitting out, she shot back. They were in my bedroom on my nightstand. I don't recall inviting either of you in there to flip through the intimate details of my life. Has Connie seen them yet? Or are you planning to print copies and pass them out like coupons? Who pushed your buttons today? Yeah, I crossed a line. Sorry, but that's how it is. How long are you going to be down this time? She asked. No idea. My doctor's dropping by later to fill me in. Honestly, I'm over being cooped up in this dump. And this round, that's on you. Need me to grab anything from home? Tina asked. Just my Master magazine, if you don't mind. Still sealed, please, I added with a smirk. Well, the doctor said, peering at my x-rays, you're mine for another 2 or 3 weeks. After that, you can head home, but only if you swear to stay glued to that damn recliner. No shortcuts. You cheat, and I'll keep you here until the insurance dries up. I'll play nice, I said, aiming for a light tone, or at least stay sneaky enough not to get caught. No time for jokes, he shot back, deadly serious. Pull another stunt like last time, and you'll be limping for life. Message received, loud and clear. No more messing around. The price was too high. Friday night, Tina dropped a bomb. Connie's seeing someone, she said. She didn't tell you because she was nervous. Yeah, she had feelings for you, but mostly because you saved her. After that night you two shared, she realized you were too far apart in age, and the guilt hit her hard. She met someone about a month ago. It's been serious since. That's why she's been keeping her distance. She's planning to talk to you tonight. Don't be a jerk like you were with Amy. She's already torn up. About 15 minutes later, Connie walked in. I need a word with Sam, alone, she told Tina. Tina stepped out and Connie stayed there, all business. Take it easy, Connie, I said. It's not too bad this time. Couple more weeks and I'll be out there again raising hell. She inhaled slowly. Sam, there's something I need to tell you, but I'm not sure how. Let me guess, I said. You've met someone? She nodded. And you feel bad about what happened between us? I continued. Don't. I never expected anything to come of it. I don't want you hanging around because you feel like you owe me. You've got a new chance. Take it. Don't waste a second on someone like me. Go live your life. But if there's a wedding, I want an invite, I said with a wink. She leaned in, kissed me gently, and promised to keep in touch. As she walked past the foot of the bed, I gave her a playful pat. Tell your guy he better treat you right, I called after her, or he'll be answering to me. You're a good man, Sam, Tina said as she walked back in. She left smiling, maybe a little flustered. Then why do I feel like hell? I asked. Because you didn't lose her, she said. You gained someone who'll always care about you. Tam, maybe you should go home, I told her. I'm sure you've got better things to do than hang out with me all night. I've got my journal. I need to get some thoughts down. Go out, unwind, hell, get laid. My baby wants alone time, she said, and for the first time, kissed me full on the mouth. I'll stop by Sunday. Maybe I'll even sneak you a cold one. Want one now? Get out of here, I laughed, tossing a pillow at her. The next day and a half, I was buried in my journal. Even my therapist would have been proud. I dug deep, revisiting the past, imagining the future, figuring out who I wanted by my side going forward. I didn't stop writing until just after 2 in the morning on Sunday. Only paused when Debbie came in, took the notebook from my hands, and told me it was time to rest. Just 5 more minutes, I pleaded. Don't make me get firm, she warned. You want out of here? Then you need sleep. When Walls showed up with that temperature-controlled surprise, let's just say it tasted like salvation. She kept an eye on the hallway while I took care of the bottle. Afterward, I popped a couple mints to hide the evidence. Thanks, I said, sinking into the mattress. I needed that. I was ready now for whatever came next. A new chapter was waiting. How long has this been happening, Tina? My voice was low as I turned my head to look at her sitting beside my hospital bed. She furrowed her brow slightly. What do you mean? What's been happening? The way you feel about me, I murmured. She hesitated before responding. Since maybe a month after you first asked me to pretend to flirt with you. Why didn't you say anything before now? I didn't understand it at first, she admitted. Honestly, I didn't believe it myself. It felt unreal. You're in your 40s, right? I asked, trying to piece things together. Tina laughed, giving my hand a light squeeze. Try 47, but I'll take the compliment. I was so envious of Amy, she said, her eyes locking onto mine. You fought like hell to win her back, and she couldn't have cared less. She used every bit of energy to hurt you just because you wanted to fix your marriage. She paused, her voice quieter. I would give anything to have someone fight for me like that. Her gaze dropped to the floor. My husband passed away 15 years ago. When he died, it felt like he took a piece of me with him. But you, being with you, it's the first time since then I've felt something whole, like I might not be broken forever. I didn't see it at first either, I confessed. The more we were together, the more I wondered if I was just imagining a connection that didn't really exist. You weren't supposed to pick up on it, she said with a soft smile. I barely even knew myself, until I saw you in that hospital bed after the coma. Something inside me snapped. I was furious, at everyone. Her hands curled into fists. I lost it when Amy came to visit you. I told her off, told her she gave you up and had no right to treat you like that anymore. Then she looked away, her voice suddenly tender. That's when I realized what was really going on. I didn't want to defend you like a friend. I wanted to be in her place. I wanted to be the one you were fighting for. But I'm older than you, Sam. A lot older. I even told Connie. I couldn't wrap my head around why someone like you would be interested in someone like me. I smiled faintly. How many people do you know, older or not, who can still run 20 miles, throw themselves into danger for strangers, or travel halfway across the world for someone they love? Not a lot, she replied. I'm not asking for anything crazy, she said, brushing hair from her face. God knows you're still stuck in bed. I'm just asking you to think about it. That's all. She leaned down, kissed my cheek softly, and walked out of the room, leaving me to sit in silence with my thoughts for the second time in 3 days. Over the next couple of weeks, Tina was a near-constant presence at the hospital. Even the medical staff began to notice. One of the doctors who came to check on me kept directing everything to her, assuming she was my wife. If your husband wants that leg to heal, he's going to have to take it easy, he told her. I'm not Sam's wife, she corrected him without missing a beat. Just a friend. The doctor looked flustered. Oh, I'm sorry, it's just, you're listed as his main contact, so I assumed. Well, she said firmly, I'm not married. To Sam or anyone else. A week before I was set to be discharged, the same doctor came by with a final rundown. Here's what he can do and what he needs to avoid. Keep him active, but don't let him overdo it. And here's my personal number, in case he needs reining in. Tina went ahead and converted our basement into a workout space, a personal little boot camp. 2 months in, I was seeing steady, measured progress. No shortcuts, no recklessness. One afternoon, I had music blaring while I worked out, completely focused, when I heard her voice cut through the noise. "If you push yourself too hard again, I swear I'll be dragging your stubborn butt back to the ER myself." I chuckled and caught my breath. "Doctor said I can start using the other leg soon. I'm aiming to be walking outside by Christmas." She just shook her head. "You don't learn, do you?" "Never, guardian angel." She rolled her eyes, already heading upstairs. "Debbie and her boyfriend are coming for dinner. I need help." I opened my mouth to protest, my leg after all, but she shut me down fast. "Don't start, you know better than that." Tina didn't take excuses from anyone, least of all me. She'd seen me at my absolute worst, and she still chose to stay. And if I'm being completely honest, yeah, the fact that she was amazing in bed didn't hurt. Still, when I finally sat her down and said I just wanted us to stay best friends, she didn't take it well. I told her it wasn't just the age gap. It was deeper than that. I valued what we had far more than anything a romance could replace. But there was one night, one time when we let the lines blur, let curiosity take over. Later, she asked me if I was planning to go back to Amy. I didn't say a word, just shook my head. To be honest, Amy only wanted me back because I was easy. Dependable, predictable, someone she could manipulate without much effort. She knew she'd made mistakes, sure, but figured we could just sweep it all under the rug and keep going like nothing had changed. But no matter what I did, I couldn't unsee the mental picture of her and Tyler together. Even wiping that photo from my laptop didn't erase it from my memory. People around me kept saying I'd messed up by walking away from her. Maybe they were right, but it was a choice I had to own. Jack and I still talk every week. He told me to trust my instincts, so I did. By that point, though, I'd already made up my mind. Once the house was sold, I moved in with Debbie. Her apartment was tight on space, so I had to part with most of my stuff. Ended up keeping maybe a quarter of my furniture. She had a cozy double bed already, and honestly, we didn't venture far from it those first few weekends. It was all about passion, closeness, love, if you want to call it that. Things started to get more serious after one of her trademark sponge baths, and that happened more than once. Those final 2 weeks in the hospital weren't exactly what I'd call a high point, but we found a way to make them count. We talked, really talked, and discovered just how much we aligned. Our differences practically non-existent. She was everything I needed in that moment, like the perfect dose of medicine, if you will. Tina's with someone else now, a doctor actually. Same one who operated on both of my feet. Even after we cleared the air between us, she kept being supportive. So did he. Eventually, I noticed he'd speak more to her than me when he entered the room. Then they started grabbing coffee downstairs. Then a movie, then dinner, and after that, well, you can probably fill in the blanks. These days, I'm back on my feet. I still see Tina on the weekends. And I'm gearing up for a 5K in a couple of months, with Debbie's full support, of course. As I've said before, Debbie's in charge now. She's not subtle about consequences. If I mess up, there'll be a price. And if I question her, she'll remind me who's calling the shots. So am I happy? Yeah, I am. Do I think I'll marry Debbie? Not today. Maybe one day, when we finally settle down in Sarasota. Would I relive any of this if given the chance? Not a damn chance.